Hi guys, this is Dawn Swan, and I'm back with you for the third week in my series Relationship Tips from the Pros, Dr. John and Julie Gottman. And just using this series to share with you a little of what I've learned from the Gottman's research with couples over the past 30 years. So if you were able to catch the previous videos, what I've been doing is going through the model called the Sound Relationship House that the Gottmans put together using their data from their research. The first week we spoke about building love maps. Last week we talked about the importance of sharing fondness and admiration. And tonight I want to touch on the third behavior that the couples who are thriving do really well, and that is turning towards instead of turning away from each other. So one term that you need to understand before we get into this concept is a term called bids for affection. So as the Gottmans studied all of their different couples, they observed this interesting behavior that when couples want to connect with each other, most of the time they don't come right out and say, "Hey honey, I want to connect with you," or "Hey honey, I'm feeling disconnected and I'd really like to feel more connected to you." We don't typically talk to each other that way, although sometimes it might be a little easier if we did. But typically what we do, instead of directly coming out and saying it, is we make these bids for affection. And the problem is a lot of times we miss these bids or cues that our partner is giving us that they want to connect with us and that they need to spend time with us and feel close. So some examples of bids for connection might be, you're driving in the car, you haven't spent a lot of time together, maybe there's not a lot of conversation happening, and one person speaks up and says, "Oh, I love this song on the radio. Every time I hear it, it just reminds me of this particular memory or this particular place." That may be a way that that person is making a bid to connect by initiating a conversation, wanting to just connect through talking to their partner. Another subtle bid might be if your partner's working on the computer, that you come up behind them and you put a hand on their back and just kind of gently rub their shoulders. So just these little subtle ways that we show or start to try to reach out and extend our hand, extend our heart to our partner in the hope that they'll reach back. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And what the Gottmans observed in their research of couples is that there were a few different ways that couples responded to those bids for affection. So sometimes the partner would turn toward, they would see the bid, they would recognize it as their partner trying to reach out and connect, and they would turn toward their partner and meet that bid for connection and respond in kind. So that's turning toward. Sometimes partners turned away from each other, and that might have been just because they didn't even notice the bid. Sometimes we're so caught up in our own life and our own world and so distracted with what we have going on in our heads that we literally just don't see it. We miss it. Other times we may be, just at a time where we're stressed out and we don't have a lot of energy, and maybe we do see that our partner is reaching for us, but we just don't feel like responding. We don't have the energy in us to do it. The third and most damaging response is when partners turn against their partner in a moment of a bid for affection. And this really only happens in probably the most strained, the most stressed relationships. But the worst case scenario would be that your partner makes a bid for connection, and out of your own stress or out of your own pain, you turn toward them and attack them. Get away from me. Can't you see I'm working? I don't have time for you right now. Something like that most of us wouldn't do. But sometimes we do. We really do let our partners have it. So that would be an example of turning against. And so again, what John and Julie Gottman learned from the masters, the couples that were healthy and thriving and growing strong, is they had perfected two things that they worked really hard at and did consistently. One was learning how their partner made bids for affection, like learning the secret language that your partner speaks. If I were to ask you right now, could you name 2 or 3 ways that your partner subtly reaches out for connection? Could you do it? What comes to your mind? So first of all, you have to know how your partner reaches out. And then you have to be actually aware, attentive enough to your partner that you can see when they're making those bids to connect. And then lastly, making sure that when you do notice those bids for connection, that you turn toward your partner, if at all possible. And if you notice that there is a time when either intentionally or unintentionally that you turned away or that you turned against, make sure that you go back to your partner after you've realized it and say, honey, I missed it. You were reaching out for me and I didn't see it. I realize it now, but I missed it in the moment and I'm so sorry. Or if it was a moment of turning against, really taking ownership for that and saying, you know what, I was in a bad place and that was not okay. And I'm so sorry. Would you forgive me? And could we have another chance to connect? So hopefully that makes sense to you. If you would like to understand it better, do a search on YouTube for John and Julie Gottman and listen to some of their videos. They have so much more information to share with you. But for this week, that was the concept of turning toward your partner's bids for affection instead of turning against. I hope that was helpful to you, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the future for some more videos. Thanks.